name is Adam Soltani, and I am the Executive Director of CARE Oklahoma, that is the Oklahoma chapter of the Council on American-Islamic Relations. And tonight, I want to share with you the story of Islamophobia in Oklahoma. But first, an interesting fact. If you don't know a Muslim, you are much more likely to have hatred or animosity for a Muslim. So if you don't know a Muslim or you don't have a Muslim friend, I will be your Muslim friend. Find me on Facebook. I'm also on Twitter and Instagram. I'm happy to do that for you. So the story of Islamophobia in Oklahoma begins in 2012 when a man by the name of Sadiq Long, a U.S. citizen, a decade-long naval veteran, living overseas, teaching English in Doha, Qatar, got a call that his mother had been diagnosed with congestive heart failure. He did what any good son would do, and he booked a ticket, only to arrive at the airport in Qatar to be told he can't board the plane because he's on a no-fly list, without due process, without being informed. It took 9 months and a federal lawsuit to get him back to Oklahoma. That same year, a woman was locked out of Valley National Bank here in Oklahoma, only because she was Muslim and she wore the headscarf, and they claimed that it was a threat to the security of the bank to let her in. In 2013, a mosque in Oklahoma was vandalized the night before their congregational prayer with spray paint saying things like, "F you Muslims, go back home," and pictures of male genitalia. Imagine arriving for a congregational prayer and seeing such things. Later in 2013, the Islamic Society of Edmond, a mosque that had existed since 1992, filed for expansion of the current building, and it took 3 years with protests to get that expansion approved. In 2014, former Representative John Bennett began to attack the Muslim community by saying things such as Islam is a cancer that needs to be cut out of America, and that 90% of our holy book is violent, none of which is true. We called on GOP leadership in Oklahoma to condemn this hate rhetoric, and instead of doing that, they added their own hate rhetoric and supported him. Thus, as you can see here, we had a press conference in front of their headquarters condemning that hate speech and calling for better policies and better actions. As a result of these attacks on the Muslim community, in 2015, we established our Oklahoma Muslim Day at the Capitol, now in its 5th year. A day in which we hope to show up at the Capitol and engage with our elected officials, learn from them, and let them know who we are as a community. And instead of being met with open arms, this is what we were met with. More than 3 dozen protesters, some who came as far as Michigan and Indiana, met us with hateful signs, hateful rhetoric, and tried to bar our way into the Capitol. One protester even spit on a young student from Tulsa, Oklahoma, as they attended that day. In 2016, a business in Otaha declared themselves a Muslim-free establishment. We had to file a lawsuit and fight for 4 years in the courts to get them to remove that sign because it wanted to take us back to a time in our country where segregation was a reality. In 2016, former Representative John Bennett held an interim study in which he labeled all the mosques and Islamic centers in Oklahoma falsely as jihadi training grounds and pointed the finger at me and a local imam and falsely accused us of being the biggest terrorist in the state. And also that year, one of the saddest stories related to the impact of Islamophobia in Oklahoma. A man from Tulsa by the name of Khalid Jabbar, his neighbor, Stanley Majors. Stanley Majors had a history of attacking that family. And one night, the Jabbar family got word that they should be concerned about their safety. They called the Tulsa police. They came and looked for Stanley everywhere. They couldn't find him. 8 minutes later, Khalid Jabbar lay dead on his front porch. This man had a history of calling his family filthy Muslims, dirty Arabs, and telling them to go back home. And the saddest thing about the story is Khalid Jabbar and his family, they weren't even Muslim. They were Arab Christians. But Stanley thought they were Muslim and hated them as such. But enough of the sad story. This is what the Muslim community really looks like. They're, unfortunately, OSU cowboys. Doctors, lawyers, teachers, milkmen. And they're here to declare in their amazing diversity that we are all Oklahomans. We have one thing in common, is that we are part of the state, and we're part of what has made the state great for more than 100 years. They're also here to remind you that Islamophobia and hate stops with you and I. We have the ability and the power to stand up to hateful rhetoric, to stand up to ignorance, and speak truth to power and to ignorance. And Muslims are here to tell you that as much as you love Oklahoma, we do too, because it's a great place to raise your family, it's a great place to worship, It's a great place to have a basketball team for 10 years until you lose all your good players. But we love Oklahoma just as much as anyone else, and we hope that Oklahoma will love their Muslim community. Thank you.